Welcome to the Prophecy Club. I have to tell you something that's funny. About the 1st of October, my son Sean and I, which of course he works at Prophecy Club in Topeka, Kansas, we talked about what we were going to do for the month of October, and every year we always play occult stuff around the month of October. However, with all the cover stone, with all the stuff happening with the election and everything, I didn't get to it. We talked about, okay, we were going to offer all of our occult stuff, and we were going to give everybody like the whole month of October to go to watchprophecyclub.com and just watch them for free. Well, I forgot. I just, with all the other things, I just flat forgot. So here it is. Now, this is Wednesday morning at 10:49 when I'm making this broadcast. And I realized that because we're going to Topeka, Kansas this weekend for the Solemn October Assembly, I have to make a bunch of broadcasts in advance. So I called Sean. I said, "Hey, what do you think we ought to what do you think we ought to do here for these broadcasts?" He says, "I think you need to do the occult thing just like we talked about 3 weeks ago." I said, "Oh, yeah, man, that's right. I forgot about it. Okay. So what are we going to do?" So what we have done is extended this to kind of make up for my forgetting all about it in wake of all the other things happening. So here's what we're going to offer. We're going to open up watchprophecyclub.com for not only the rest of October, but all of November. You can go in and watch 9 occult DVDs. This is all having to do with the occult and the occult holidays and Halloween and all that sort of stuff for the whole month of October and the month of November. So we're going to give you 9 DVDs. That's right. You can go watch 9 DVDs free. Costs you nothing. All you have to do, and why are we doing this? Well, obviously we're doing this because we want to get more people signed up at watchprophecyclub.com. Well, why? Because it's about 28 years of DVDs that we have made. I think there's like around 300 of them up there. They're all up there for $20 a month or $200 a year. Obviously, $200 a year is the best deal. But it's fabulous for us and you. It's good for us because, hey, we don't have to take a phone call. We don't have to make a DVD, pack it up. We don't have to pay for shipping, none of that stuff. And you get it for a whole lot less. Instead of like $30 a DVD, you can watch 28 years of DVDs for $20 a month. I mean, it's a steal. It's the best deal. And I'm so glad that over all of these years, we made all of those DVDs and we kept all of those DVDs. So what we've got up there is loaded the very best copy that we have. So what we're making available is 9 DVDs based upon the occult and occult holidays and Halloween and all that sort of stuff. 9 of them you can watch for the whole month of October and November. That's all of October. I guess I realize it's almost gone. October and November at watchprophecyclub.com. And obviously, what we're hoping to do is to get you to be a regular supporter. $20 a month, you could go up there and watch any of these 300 DVDs for $20 a month or $200 a year. That's the best deal. And I thought about this, when we were setting this all up, and I said, man, that is like giving our stuff away. Do we really want to do that? I mean, so what happens if somebody just goes and signs up for $20 and then they watch all 300 DVDs and then they're gone? And then I thought, yeah, well, if you watch all 300 DVDs in a month, you'll probably not have much of an attitude left. So I think it's great that it's good for you. It's good for us. It helps the ministry. And, I mean, think about this. If we just had enough people going up and signing up at watchprophecyclub.com, it would help support what we're doing every month kind of as a base, okay? So it's good for you. It's good for us. So now I'm going to go and play a DVD that I looked it up here. It was made October 1997. It's Doc Marquis speaking. So this is 13 years old. And I've heard people say that our voice changes. Well, boy, I just listened to this, and you're going to notice that there's a change in my voice. It's a much higher pitch 13 years ago. But anyway, here it is. I'm introducing Doc Marquis, October 1997, and it's called America's Occult Holidays.
Is the oldest symbol that represents Nimrod. See, in the occult world, From November 1st all the way through April 30th, the god is in charge. He will rule over the world for those 6 months. After that, the goddess takes over. At this point of the season, he is known as the winter god. He is also commonly referred to as the horned god, the stag god, the god of the hunt, so on and so forth. It is for this reason, his symbol, the 5-pointed star now, you've been placing it on top of these Christmas trees. How many of us have done this in the past? Be honest, yeah. We've been putting those on top of our trees. In the old days, of course, what they used to do, they would take candles, put them on the branches of the trees and light them. They would also take these same candles and put them on their windowsills. But you got to remember, this time of the year, the nighttime is longer than the daytime, correct? What this candle does is send out light. Now this is according to the occult belief now. Sends these lights out from the homes to where the winter god can see them, and he will come down and bless the people in that household. These lights are welcoming back the winter god himself. But of course, nowadays, we've modernized this, and we have these multicolored lights that blink on and off, and these fake candles we put in the windowsill, but it's still the exact same thing. You put those on your trees, you put those on top of your windowsills, you're doing exactly what those people in the occult are doing to this very day. You're welcoming in the occult winter god. Then, of course, there are the various plants that we are using to celebrate the season. We've seen mistletoe before. It's a green plant with white berries that are very, very poisonous. The mistletoe is a very sacred plant in the occult world. It's a fertility plant. It's for this reason that the custom of when you walk under the mistletoe you're supposed to kiss, that's what it's symbolizing, the rites of fertility. The Christmas wreath. It is circular in its design, and it was done so for a reason. And I'm going to try to be as tactful about this as possible. But if the truth be known, this, first of all, represents the cycle of life and the cycle of reincarnation. The reason that is so is because, occultically speaking, again, this is another fertility symbol, because it represents the female sexual organs. And it's for this reason why in the occult world there is still place candles around it, because it symbolizes the male phallic symbol, the unification of both of them. And of course, we've seen the holly plant before. This is again another fertility plant. It's a minor one in the occult, but this one is still used to celebrate the Yule season in the occult world. And of course, a lot of us honestly believe that these holidays are harmless, that there's nothing wrong with them. As we continue along, how many people, if this is really a harmless holiday, could honestly right now explain the origins of Santa Claus? Let's face it, Santa Claus, just like these holidays, just didn't fall out of heaven. They had to have come somewhere. In the occult world, remember, as I stated before, the winter god is known as the stag god. Through the myth that are found in the occult world, Satan is actually trying to convince his followers that he is like God. See, God has three qualities that, of course, no one else has. He's omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. He sees all, he knows all, he is all-powerful. This is God, just part of God. When we look at the characteristics of Santa Claus, how many of us remember Santa Claus is also omnipotent, according to the legends? Do you know he can tell you at any given time who's been bad and who's been good? And according to one popular story, Santa Claus learned how to pick up snow and make it into a snowball. And this snowball is actually used as a crystal ball. He actually learned to do this through the winter god. He's got the power to look through this crystal ball, use it as a scrying device, and divine who's been good and who's been bad. As far as him being everywhere, well, yes, according to the myths, he also has the ability to be like God and be omnipresent. because according to the story, he can circumnavigate the world in hours and give everyone what they deserve. And if you look at the Scandinavian legend, especially where we get into Odin, according to the ancient myths, Odin took out one of his eye and threw it in the well of knowledge, so he himself would gain wisdom. Now, aren't these the three things that make up God? All-knowing, all-powerful, and all-present? This is exactly what Satan is telling his followers through this particular occult holiday. And mind you, why do you think they have reindeers in this story? They symbolize the stag god. These are stag creatures, aren't they? And there's 8 of them for a very specific reason. 8 in gematria stands for new beginnings. However, 8 is the only number when you place it on its side becomes an occult symbol. And that is the symbol for infinity. The infinite yearly return of the stag god. Why do you think Rudolph, has a red nose? It's the traditional colors. In the celebration of Yule, in the occult world, there is always red and green. These are the 2 colors that are used during that time of the year. The mistletoe, holly, wreath, the pine trees, the fir trees, all of them are green. The holly berries, the bows, Santa's clothes, Rudolph's nose, all that is red. You people didn't create this stuff. It was already there. All that happened is that it was brought into your American calendar and it became Americanized and Christianized. That's how you get this. So the question is, whose birthday is December 25th then, if it's not Jesus Christ? Semiramis and Nimrod, the 2 original co-founders of the occult world, had a child. He was known as Tammuz. Tammuz was born on December 25th. 4 days before December 25th is when the night of Yule begins. It was purposely brought to December 25th for a reason, as far as Christmas goes. It was done for a reason. Back during the early Roman Empire days, when you had the first popes, of course, we know historically speaking, the first one was Constantine. He took over Rome in 313 AD and then established the Council of Trent and declared what was known as the Edict of Milan in 323 AD, to where he started what he wanted now, what he called a state religion. Now, Constantine, and this is historically, you can prove this easily, was a practicing pagan. He was an occultist. He took these pagan occult rituals and holidays, put them in this new state religion, and if you would, candy-coated it with an air of Christianity. The reason he did that, because he knew the pagans would recognize this for what it really was and still come in. December 25th, as I stated before, is the birthday of Tammuz. What was also going on during the Roman empires in those days, on December 25th now, was the day of Saturnalia. To the Romans, the head of all the gods was the god known as Saturn. This festival to Saturn was marked with a couple very specific events. First of all, there would be great banquets. Second of all, people would be drinking till they could drink no longer. Third, they would be giving out presents to one another. Now think about this. Don't we have our traditional Christmas banquets to this very day? Aren't we having wassail and other different types of drinks during this holiday? Aren't we exchanging presents on December 25th? All this you get because of the occult. When you think about it, what would any of this have to do with the birthday of Christ anyways? Even some of these traditions, and I do mean traditions, we've been taught tradition and not scriptures. Tradition tells us that there was 3 wise men that made it to the manger, correct? Scripture tells us those wise men never made it to the manger. They never made it till Christ was 2 years old and he was in his Father's workshop. That's what the Bible tells us. Tradition tells us otherwise. Tradition also tells us, well, This is the birthday of Jesus Christ. We have to make up our minds if we're going to go by tradition or if we're going to go by Scripture. As I stated before, this is going to strike home, and it may hit some of you very hard. But the truth is, as born-again Christians, we have to remember Jeremiah chapter 10 tells us we are not supposed to learn the way of the heathens. You will find out when Joshua was bringing the children of Israel into the promised land, the reason God threw all those people and those nations out was because they were all practicing the occult religions. God named the 9 reasons why they were being cast out of those nations, and every single one of those reasons, you look at them, were occultic ones. This is how evil, how foul this stuff is in the eyes of God. And yet, for some reason, we honestly think that there's nothing wrong with this stuff, that if we just say, well, God, you know my heart, you know that I'm honoring you. How are we honoring God if we're doing it through occult holidays? I can't see how we honestly can say we are honoring God if we're doing it the exact same way those people in the occult are doing it to this very day. And yet, of course, there's a lot of other holidays that we think, well, let's put it this way, that we have Christianized, and we have actually fooled ourselves into believing are Christian. The next one would be Easter. This one, let's face it, this one is extremely popular. This one is supposed to be the resurrection of Jesus Christ, correct? And yet, you're going to find out Easter and the resurrection of Jesus Christ have absolutely nothing in common. Now, if you remember in Genesis at the Tower of Babel, and this is the classic rendition of the Tower of Babel itself, the people there had sinned against God. They formed a one-world government, under a one-world people, under a one-world language, under a one-world tongue, under a one-world religion, which was the occult. The co-founders of this occult religion was Nimrod and Semiramis. God did not want this to happen. So in order to get these people to finally break away from this and their sin, he confused their language. The people went throughout the entire world. Now think about this for a second. When these people left, do you think that they forgot anything? Do you think that they suddenly forgot their occult religion? Do you think they finally that they forgot where they came from and what they did? Of course they didn't. When we take a look at the next great empire that came about after Babylon, we see something very interesting here. Now down here is a great pyramid of Giza. It's on the Giza plateau in Egypt. But if you look at the top one, that is what's known as a step pyramid. It was one of the earliest pyramids ever built. It was built by the pharaoh Giza. Isn't that the exact formation that they were building the Tower of Babylon with? Something very interesting is happening to us both historically and prophetically. It all started in Babylon, as far as our civilization goes. A one-world religion, one-world people under a one-world language, one financial system, so on and so forth. It's going to come around, and according to the scriptures, we're going to have Babylon all over again. We're going to have this one-world order under a one-world people, under a one-world occult religion. We're doomed to repeat history because we did not learn the mistakes of it. We have really gone off the mark. But as I stated before, you will notice, same formation. What is even more interesting, how many people have heard of the European Common Market and that they're trying to create a one-world monetary system known as the European Unit? Here is their official logo. What is that? Right, that's the Tower of Babylon again. Look at the inscription down here, Europe. Many tongues, one voice. They want to reverse and undo what God did. God took one voice and turned it into many languages. They want to take those many languages and unite them under one voice, just one people again. The 5-pointed stars up there, those are inverted pentafors. Those are the common symbols that are used by those people in Satanism. But there is also something very peculiar going on here. I want you to pay very close attention to this next transparency, and you'll see why they're in the formation they're at. You look at the very top of this next transparency, and I think you'll see what I'm talking about. The oldest symbol in existence for Nimrod is the pentaphor. Notice it is above or crowning Babylon itself. This is completely telling you that the occult religion is going to be the head over this new Babylon. We're going back to where we started. If you remember in your scriptures, when Paul was going through Rome, Greece, the whole empire, well, Paul himself was not noted as a quiet man. If nothing else, Paul himself, let's face it, got into a bit of trouble. Thrown into prison at least 3 times. They tried to stone him to death. They definitely ran him out of town many times. And there was one particular event, if you people will recall it in the scriptures, where they went into, they actually were trying to get into this one temple and trying to tell these people, you're not supposed to be worshiping these false gods. And if you remember, this was in the city of Ephesus. These people were worshiping a goddess known as Diana. Remember how at the end they were shouting for hours afterwards, great is Diana of the Ephesians? They were doing this for a reason, but if you look at this list over here, Semiramis and Nimrod, their names are the only thing that change in the entire occult world. The practices are the same, but because the people went to Egypt, to Mesopotamia, to the Median Persian Empire, to Greece, to Rome, to Great Britain, and finally to America, the names were changed because of culture. The practices are still the same. Remember, when it finally got to Egypt, the sun god, which is what Nimrod was, is now known as Ra, the sun god. The moon goddess is now Isis. That's all that happened. The names changed, but the beliefs remained the same. When Paul finally got to Ephesus, the goddess that they were shouting about is Diana. This is one of the oldest statues that represents the goddess Diana. This is who they were making a big stink about back then. They were standing up in that temple for hours praising and worshiping this statue. Now remember, as I told you before, Semiramis is a fertility goddess. It is for this reason that you will notice that Diana is a many-breasted figure. It is still a fertility goddess. It did not change. The only thing that changed was the name. Again, if we go to the Roman belief system, their empire, we will look at Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. And she is also a fertility goddess. These are the pagan people that the people in Egypt were worshiping. Now, why are they worshiping a fertility goddess? What's going on? How did this bring about Easter? According to those legends, which are still found in the occult world today, after the first year when Semiramis had died, a giant multicolored egg had fallen out of heaven and landed in the Euphrates River. It washed ashore and landed in a pile of wicker reed. You've seen wicker furniture before, correct? We know how strong and durable that stuff can be. Out of this egg, Semiramis, in her reincarnated form as the spring goddess, broke out and would bless those followers of hers. Now, first of all, this is where you get the multicolored egg, the Easter egg, from. This is also where you get the Easter basket from. And the reason you get the word Easter is because of the Babylonian. In the Babylonian Talmud, you check on the name of Easter. It is properly spelled Ishtar. It got confused, a lot of people got this confused, with the Egyptian rendition of it. A lot of people thought it was Ishtar. But if you check the original transliteration, the Babylonian one, it is still pronounced Easter to this very day. That is just another name for Semiramis, the moon goddess, or the fertility goddess of the occult world. Now, how many people, be honest, have ever attended a sunrise service? Just raise your hand. If you've ever gone, of course we have. Why? Do you know there's nothing in the Bible to base that on? Scripture, whenever it talked about the dawn, the twilight, sunrise, sundown, the night, the dark, the light, the day, it was mentioned. God knows time. He knows when it's light and dark. He put it in the Bible. When you look at the book of John, and the apostle Peter ran to the sepulchre to check upon the body of Christ, it states, and while it was yet dark, not light, not a sunrise, it was dark out. The reason we're doing it, having these silly sunrise services, is because of the occult. You see, during those times in Babylon and Egypt, they wanted to welcome in the spring goddess, get her here as quick as possible. What they would do, they would go to the Temple of Babylon. The priest would actually have new white robes made for the welcoming in of their Queen of Heaven, their spring goddess. The priestesses would have these hats that actually looked like baby bonnets made for the ceremony, and they would all go to the temple. And it is for this reason why, ladies, you are getting your Easter bonnets, and gentlemen, you're getting your brand new Easter suits. That's where that part of the belief came in. But the reason these people, what they were doing, they would go to the temple, they would hold this ceremony to welcome in the spring goddess. The reason they did it at sunrise is because once the ceremony was over, they could all disperse throughout the land, and whoever would find the new egg that fell out of heaven to where the spring goddess emerged out of, they would be the person who would receive that blessing from their goddess. That's why you have a sunrise service. Semiramis and Nimrod had a son, as I've told you before, named Tammuz. Now, Tammuz was nowhere near as good a hunter as his father, Nimrod, was, because when he was 40 years old, he was killed by a wild boar out on the hunt. Now, an interesting event was going on in the book of Ezekiel. In Ezekiel, chapter 8, verse 14, let me set this for you. God has taken Ezekiel, and he's showing him visions and different things, and taken him around. And at this particular point right now, this is what it states. This is what God is doing with Ezekiel. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Tammuz now, the son of Nimrod. The reason they were doing this ceremony, what they were involved in, now remember, this is in the house of God himself now.
Now I'm going to interrupt right there, and I'm going to encourage you again to go to watchprophecyclub.com. $20 a month or $200 a year. You can watch up to 300 DVDs anytime you want to. Watchprophecyclub.com. And this month, for October and November, we're making 9 of the occult videos available for you to watch for free. But that's right, we're just giving you 9 DVDs to go watch for free. Why? Because we are hoping and praying that you will like what is on watchprophecyclub.com, and then you'll sign up $20 a month or $200 a year at watchprophecyclub.com. You should at least go and watch a free video or 2. Watchprophecyclub.com. Click like, share, and subscribe.